Guys, welcome to episode 008. That is 8 if you're counting. To Thoughtful Thursday podcast. I'm your host, Mike Elkins.
Not as easy as it looks.
Oh, this is great. This is easy. All day. Automatic. I'm filling in for Nik because Nik preached this weekend. So we were like, hey, let's switch roles. So I'm hosting, and you're welcome. We'll just do this. There we go. Nik is hating this right now, by the way.
Cammie,
I'm fine. I feel great.
did you have the opportunity to host or?
Nope.
Me neither.
Not yet.
Never.
Well, you're still in your 90-day trial period, so.
True. I believe we all are.
I was just going to say that.
Yours is a special
It is
one.
episode
for founding
8.
members. For founding members, it's waived.
Yes.
Okay.
Grandfathered in.
Well, he's the grandfather, though. I mean, technically.
That's fair.
Well, not technically.
No, not technically. Mom, if you're listening, no, we don't have any news.
Does Carol listen?
I don't know.
Does your mom listen to this?
I don't know.
Please.
Hi,
It would make,
All the viewers are parents.
oh my gosh. It would make my heart so happy if Carol listened to the podcast.
Well, Carol,
I-
this one's for you.
I think
Carol
she
in
probably
Texas.
does. And if
probably
she
does.
doesn't, like literally, my heart will be broken.
I better text her.
Does she even know about it?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh, you don't know that.
She follows our Facebook page.
yeah.
Oh,
All right, well, this week we're looking at a letter that was written to the Church of Laodicea. Is that how you guys say that
Yep.
name?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard some people say it differently. You know, this church specifically was a fruitful church at some point, and somewhere along the way, it was kind of rendered useless by lots of different things that we experience today. Wealth, prosperity, comfort, relying on self as opposed to Holy Spirit. And so that is what we're talking about today. That is what Nik talked about on Sunday. So, Nik, why don't you give us like a 60-second recap, or because Carol probably didn't listen Sunday either, so
Yeah.
she needs
Well,
that.
We'll see. I'll text her. I got Carol's number. Carol loves me.
She'd love to hear from you.
Hey, during Abby's grad party, when I smoked all those pork butts, she and I shared a cup of coffee in the morning. It was great. She's a sweet lady. Just a quick recap, and especially if you didn't hear my message on Sunday, we just learned that Laodicea is a church that's made up of really wealthy Christians, and Laodicea actually became this. It went from being a city that was very poor and pretty insignificant to being one of the biggest trade cities in all of Asia Minor. And it really sat in this unique place between, Colossae and the other town I'm just not even going to try to pronounce at this point, but it's, Hierol.
Yep, nailed it.
Nailed it.
Hierapolis?
Yes, thank you.
Hierapolis.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
If I don't have it written down in front of me, I can't say it.
You missed the...
I know. I wanted so.
I
Darn
saw
it.
you looking, trying to find...
Not that
No.
one. I wanted clapping or here.
There you go.
There you go. Does that feel better? And it sits between these two cities, and Hierapolis is known for, is famous for its hot springs, and especially during this time of the world where the only way to heat up water is over a fire, you just think about all the purposes that you could use this for, whether it's, cooking, washing your clothes, soaking in for,
Sitting with your
health,
buddies.
sitting with your buddies, for its, health purposes. And then the other one was Colossae, known for its pure, fresh water. And this is really at the height of Roman occupation. So they have aqueducts, piping this water to Laodicea, and they actually were known for having pretty much undrinkable water. It was just the worst that you could get.
Laodicea.
Yeah. And by the time that both of these water sources got to Laodicea, they were both lukewarm and not really usable in the way that they would have been coming from the sources that they were coming from. And so Laodicea is also known for having because I really struggle to say this word, eye doctor school.
Can you please say the word that it actually is?
Ophthalmologist?
Yeah.
Is that right? Optometrist. What's the difference?
Well, an eye doctor is an optometrist, right?
Yeah, but there's a.
So the school he would go to would be... what?
There's optometry, which is different than ophthalmology.
Oh,
I would think so, since they have different names.
I went to Bible school, so
Didn't go to eye doctor school.
they were also known in the
I went to travel school.
travel school,
I did.
the school of hard
I
knocks.
thought you went to the school of hard knocks. It's a hard knock life.
I went to Toledo Travel School.
Oh, really?
I'm
I didn't
being
know that.
serious.
Okay.
To be a
We've never
travel
talked
agent.
about this.
Oh, really? Is that a real school?
Yeah, just assume that wasn't a real thing.
Hey, I'll fact check that later.
I was going to say,
Completely
you do that
irrelevant.
online, but I don't think the internet was alive then.
So they were known for there's eye doctor school and having this incredible healing eye ointment, and it was also known for its production of this fine black wool cloth. And so, you look at this place and these people living there, and they went from being a place of real insignificance to, they have their health, they have their wealth. They're incredibly self-sufficient, and
Other than their crummy water.
which, they were getting fresh water piped in. But in Revelation 3, the church is challenged, according to the passage, by Jesus Christ. And they're really told that, you're physically rich, you're content, you're healthy, you're nicely clothed, and yet you're spiritually poor, you're spiritually miserable and blind and naked. And they're told that spiritually they're lukewarm. They're not like this great hot spring water that has all these uses. They're not this cold, pure, great drinking water. They're lukewarm. These two waters and sources that have such incredible usefulness, especially during this time where you can't just turn on a tap and it's there. They're really useless. And for them, I feel like this had to be a really challenging letter to read. And, I hope for them it's that wake-up call of, okay, yep.
Yeah. All these letters are pretty cool to read. I mean, they're not very long.
Yep.
Also, just real quick, thanks for that 60-second recap.
No problem.
Yeah. We're
There were a lot of
7:49.
interruptions.
I took 30 minutes on Sunday, so.
So these are pretty cool to read. They're pretty straightforward. You, but also more specifically you, as you look at this passage, Revelation 3, what really sticks out to you the most, or what are just some things that had your wheels turning?
So I did not know all of this history about the two towns or whatever and the whole water thing. So
I mean, you went to travel school. I feel like you could learn that there.
yes, because these were towns back in my day.
Would you like to travel to the region of Laodicea? Let me
would.
tell you a little bit about the history.
I would actually.
Bring your own water. It's not that great.
Oh my. Okay. Anyway,
Reset.
I'm just gonna not comment. So I just loved all of that, all of those details, because I didn't know why he was calling them lukewarm. I didn't know that was literally the water that they actually had to drink, which I love going to Africa, but the worst thing, if there is a worst thing, the one thing is the water. It's never cold. And it's not refreshing, and so it's usually lukewarm. But sometimes it's really hot if you leave it on the bus. But yeah, like you literally want to spit it out.
Yeah,
So-
it's not a super refreshing drink.
It's not at all. So anyway, I don't know. I just loved those little details that made this passage. I've never read it in this way. I didn't know that they were known for the eye doctor school and the black wool or whatever. So just reading how Jesus gave them, like he hit on all those things. I just didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like it was a very clear letter for me.
Yeah, I mean, they're not like super lengthy.
Yeah.
And I think for
To them, it would have been very clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the exciting thing, and I kind of geek out over historical facts and information that kind of give you insight for this person that's receiving this letter, and they're going like, oh, you're blind. Ugh. Like that's something that these people probably never had to worry about was eye issues. I mean, they had the best care around, and clothe yourself in white garments versus this black cloth that you're known for, and I think those specific things really hit home. For me, I was always raised or taught growing up in the church that it was this idea of being hot on fire for God or cold for God. And I'd rather have you be cold for me than lukewarm. And so for me, this has been a passage that when you understand the historical stuff going behind it, I think it just makes it that much richer and that much clearer for us as we read it.
Yeah, no, I just like that. And to think of, okay, gold would be better than what they had because gold is refined, like you put it through that. So just thinking, okay, Jesus puts us through that refining fire, so gold is, worth more or whatever. And just the black wool could represent sin in my mind, versus he offers to cloak us in righteousness and purify us and, cover us with that white garment. I don't know. It was just really cool. Yeah. But I've also always thought I've read it the way you just explained. Don't be, I'd rather you be cold than lukewarm. I've always understood it as that. I think this is a scary verse.
Yeah. That's where, I think every time I read these, I read it through the lens of one, first being a part of the body of Christ, a part of the church. And then also as, a pastor leader in the church, reading these letters and wondering, okay, what letter would be written to us, or can these same claims be made about us? And it is terrifying. And it should, I think, get our attention and have us question those things and purify motives and our hearts and make sure that we're keeping the main thing. One of the things that really jumps out to me specifically in this letter, when he says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock," because it comes in this major rebuke of the church, right? He's telling them the things that they've gotten wrong, and he's saying, "Look, like I'm standing at the door, wanting to come in." And like, you don't even recognize me, see me, or know that I'm there because you're worrying about your own thing. And it's interesting because like just growing up in the church, I've heard that statement over and over and over again. And it's always in this like, really, it's the nice Jesus that wants to come into your heart, hey.
I think because there's a kid's song about it. I'm not going to sing it, but it's, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock, knock, knock."
Yeah, but like that idea of like Jesus is standing there and he wants to come into your heart, and this is a really sweet thing. And like, no, this is a rebuke to the church. You don't even know me, even though I'm standing here. And it's a pretty serious rebuke to them.
And I think the assumption probably for these Christians at this church is that Jesus is inside the church. And they're not recognizing that, no, he's not in your church. But I love that passage though, because it is this rebuke-filled Jesus, but in the same verse or the next verse after that, he's like, let's sit and share a meal together again. Is this invitation into more? One of the things, just kind of going off what you were sharing, Daniel, and one of the things that I think for me is really challenging is the sin of this church, if you're going to just boil it down to one thing, is self-reliance. It's this independence that we have what we need and we're good and we're comfortable. And man, if that does not describe us as Americans in the American church, and I'm speaking to myself here, I'm not just pointing fingers around, but I mean, because I definitely feel like I can relate to that at times. And I think that that's something that we have to take inventory of.
Yeah. I can tell you, from our time in Arizona, we lived in a nice area, a nice community, a bedroom community. And, I think materialistically, people didn't lack for much where we were. And being the only physical church in that community, that was something that we struggled with a lot, is how do you take this message of hope, the message of the good news, to tell people like, hey, you need this, you need salvation, you need the hope of Jesus in your life, when most of the people fit this category of feeling like, hey, we have everything that we need. We don't need anything. And from a distance, it totally looks like that's accurate. Now, whenever you get to be in a relationship with people, you see the brokenness and the hurt, and you know that need is there. But it's such a challenge, and I think we see that in other places in Scripture. It's such a challenge for the rich person, the person who has, to recognize their need for Jesus.
Cammie, you and I were talking last week, just kind of preparing for this podcast episode, and I really loved you brought up Matthew 25. And I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I thought it was an incredible connection.
Yes. So I think sometimes I have more questions than I have answers. And so like you dig and you read one scripture, which just leads to another. And so it's kind of just this journey I've been on, I guess. Like, what does it mean to actually be a follower of Jesus? What does it mean to actually be a Christian? Because so many people profess to be Christians, but maybe there's no like action or fruit. So anyway, just kind of wrestling with that. But yeah, in Matthew, it's talking about how he separates the sheep from the goats. And he was saying, depart from, I think I'm getting it also confused with a verse in Matthew chapter 7 when he says, depart from me, I never knew you. But I think in this passage, it talks about how they gave to the needy, they clothed those who needed clothing, they fed people, and they were like, when did we do that? And he said, when you do it for others, you're doing it for me. And so I guess I'm just struggling with then in Matthew chapter 7 when he says, depart from me, I never knew you. And they're like, what? We prophesied in your name. We cast out demons. We did these miracles. What do you mean? And he's like, no, I never knew you. So that is just really sobering for me, because I don't want to be that person who thinks, oh yeah, I have a real, I'm saved, I'm a Christian, but yet I just have outward things. Maybe I just know about him, but I didn't have that relationship with him. I don't want anyone to get to that day and that's like they thought they were a Christian, but they just weren't.
Sure.
So I'm just struggling with all that. So,
it reminds me too of, the depart from me, I never knew you, but going back to the Revelation 3 passage of like hey, like, I never knew you because you were unaware that I wasn't around. Like, you had everything you needed, so you thought. And I didn't know you because you didn't allow me to know you. I don't know, just that connection kind of sticks out in my mind.
I think it's, to put in perspective, and I am maybe reading things into this passage that aren't there. So just to be fair, and a little disclaimer here, but there's a reality that this church was probably doing great things for the community even, like they were probably helping the community. They were probably helping those that are hurting. They're probably, this, hey, I served you. I prophesied in your name. I did these things for you. And yet God wasn't a part of it. And I think that that's something that, Jesus didn't write to this church and say like, you're the worst example of any Christian I've ever seen, but he's like, hey, you've lost something along the way. And some things got to change.
Which is similar to, I believe before this letter in chapter 3, the letter to Ephesus. Which one it was. The letter to Ephesus, where basically lays out you've done this, this, and this, and this, which are all, we would say, good, godly, righteous things for the church to do. And he says, but I hold this one thing against you. You've forgotten your first love. Like, you've forgotten that this is about me, not about those works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the one before it? I think it is. I don't know, but it's definitely in those letters.
I feel like if only there were a way.
If only.
Only
To find out.
So, Cammie, I understand that wrestling of, because that's a wrestling I've even experienced in my own life since early on. You always are kind of going like, is it I? You know what I mean? Like, is it me? So how do you, and this is a question for everybody, but how do you accurately self-assess your level of lukewarmness or to try to get answers to the question of, is it me?
There, I muted your mic so you could clear your throat.
Oh, thank you.
15 seconds late.
Yep, a little bit.
Just here to help.
So one thing I thought, I'll get the ball rolling. One thing I thought is, I think other people are important in the process.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like sometimes I am a firm believer in self-assessment, but also sometimes our self is so flawed that we cannot accurately assess ourselves. So assessing ourselves.
That's the definition of a blind spot, right?
Yeah. Assessing ourselves based off of scripture, like in James, it's like a mirror, seeing our reflection, being willing to go, I see a reflection and I got some schmutz on my face. I need to get that off.
Schmutz.
I don't know if that's the word for it, but
Don't know if you just cussed or
maybe I did. I don't know. I apologize. Please bleep that out.
Yep.
No, don't actually, because then people will think I actually cuss. Cammie, stop. Don't give him a approving nod. I saw you.
I was just agreeing with you.
That was the do it face. But assessing ourselves through scripture and through community, I think, might be one of the best ways to do that. Because even us in this room have had conversations with each other about maybe things that we see or don't see. Like, I can think of a conversation each of you has had with me in a loving way of like, hey, you might not see this. And being willing to hear that and go, okay, instead of defensive and all the other things.
Yeah, and I want you to know I love you enough. I am always willing
to point out my blind spots.
Yeah, and that's frustrating to me personally. Just that struggle of not being able to see some of those blind spots. I would just echo everything you said, Mike, and I think one of the things that I've done just personally is having people inside the community here, that love me, not just on staff, but in our church. And then I have a couple friends outside of this community that, I'd consider close friends that, I reach out to and ask questions from time to time of like, hey, in this area, how do you perceive me? Or what does this look like to you? And just having somebody that, knows me well enough to be able to see those things and loves me enough to be able to be honest with me. Because I think it's way harder to be honest with somebody about their faults than to lie to them and just be like, no, you're good. You're good.
I don't know. Not that hard.
Maybe different personalities. It's different.
No, I think like even the willingness to ask probably indicates something about your heart and motives, right? I mean, the fact that you're even willing to seek an answer to that question is revealing something. I struggle a little bit in this because I feel a little bit schizophrenic in my brain on like extremes. So like on the one hand, I have a lot of conversations, and in fact, I think recently I've had several conversations with people where they're struggling kind of to answer this question of where they're at, because what they've been relying on and what they're looking for is kind of that spiritual high, right? The mountaintop experience, the emotion of just being moved and feeling God's presence. And we can kind of start to judge things off of that. And if we're not feeling that high, then suddenly we're questioning our faith or where we stand, which is maybe not a healthy perspective, right? Because sometimes, like, that's just not how God works, right? And then you have the other side of, hey, even when you're not feeling it, there are certain things that you know are good disciplines to do. Be in the Word, be in prayer, be a part of spiritual community, worshiping, all these things that we would say are good, healthy spiritual disciplines. And you don't want to just rely on the discipline and check a box. And so there's these tensions between those. And so, yeah, Mike, I think being able to kind of go to your spiritual community and have those conversations and wrestle through them and maybe get a little bit better gauge of where you're at.
Yeah. Cammie, you got anything?
No, I'm just processing out loud what I feel like I've been just kind of wrestling with the past month. And I'm not questioning my faith or my salvation, and nothing like that. But I think when we do start asking questions, when you read verses like this and you're like, okay, so what were they doing or not doing that was making them lukewarm? Because I don't want to be lukewarm. What does it mean just to say with your mouth that you follow Jesus versus actually following him? I want to know the difference, not to achieve something, but I just want to make sure I am being an authentic follower of Jesus.
That I am the best follower of Jesus that has ever been. Yes. You are Peter of the group. No, Lord, that will never take you alive.
Or John, the one that he loved.
Yes. No, that's obviously me, but continue.
So I don't know. That's just, you have one verse that, confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, believe that he died on the cross for my sins. I believe those things. But then you have the verse, well, even the demons believed in Jesus. So I'm just, kind of wrestling with that tension of, okay, if I were to explain to someone what it really means to follow Jesus, to deny ourselves each day, so put to death what I want, my flesh desires, and follow God's will. So
that's why you're in an interesting position, because I will often think through the lens, if I was to explain this to a child, how would I explain it?
Yeah.
And most of us adults need that childlike explanation. We might think we're smarter than we are, but I need you. I'll have this often where my kids will ask me a question. I'm like, okay, I know the answer. I think I know the answer to this, but how do I present this information to them in a way that's going to make sense and not all of a sudden throw some type of false system on them or whatever it is, but to think through it in those terms of what you do week in and week out of, I'm explaining this to elementary school kids.
Yeah. And we shouldn't make it difficult for kids to come to Jesus or anyone anyone. So it's this faith, but then try to wrestle with, okay, but now there should be action. There should be works and just, anyway, that's the tension that I'm feeling. But to answer this question, I just feel like it is healthy to ask questions. We don't want our kids ever to think, because you're doubting something,
you're sinning.
Right. So
I always said, I've always said,
as I've always said,
I don't know, I heard it somewhere, but I've always told my kids, and when I was a student pastor, but questions lead to answers, answers lead to truth, the truth sets you free. Yeah. Don't be afraid of questions, and don't think God is afraid of your questions. I mean,
amen to that.
Looking at the Moses series, right? Moses kept showing up with the questions, and eventually God's like, do it, just go do it. But he's not necessarily hypercritical of the conversation. So I want my kids to be willing to express questions or even doubts or concerns so that there can be an actual conversation about truth.
Someone's phone's going off. Somebody did not silence their device.
I did silence it, and it's still going crazy.
Shame.
I don't have my phone in here.
Shame.
I don't have my phone in here.
Just setting the record straight.
Just want you to know I am the best.
Need to turn off your phone.
Do you know how that silence button on the side works?
Do you have the silence button turned on?
That one makes it vibrate.
Well, anything to make it stop dinging.
Better than the dinging.
Look, volume 0. It shouldn't be dinging.
There's
I
overrides.
also don't know how this works.
No, you don't. Just flip the switch and put it back in your pocket, please. You got your headphones on right this week, so that's a win.
Does it?
Can we start another
Yeah.
podcast where we just roast each other for
Yes.
an hour?
Yes, I'm in.
Nick would end up crying at some point.
Oh, yeah. This is super fun, guys.
That's how every episode ends. It's just Nick like,
I'm going to go edit alone in my
hey,
office.
that's our podcast. Nick's crying.
And I'm just like, that was great. I don't know why you're so upset.
Quit crying about it, Nick. Get over it. Rub some dirt in it.
Oh.
So
Just spiritual refinement.
how do we keep ourselves from getting to the point where we're spiritually lukewarm? Or, and this isn't on here, Nick wrote these questions, by the way. He gets the credit for these. So if they're bad, he wrote them. But if they're really good, he wrote them too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think.
So I'll add to the question, not only how do we keep ourselves from getting there, but if we do feel like we are
So
there.
it wasn't good enough.
It wasn't. If we do feel like we are there in our assessment of ourselves, how do we get out of that place?
I shouldn't have interrupted you.
Pipe
'Cause
in
now I'm
some
lost.
cold.
What?
If we feel like we are lukewarm,
Oh, yeah, lukewarm. And then
How-
if we are there, how do
yeah.
we get out of
How
it?
do we keep from getting lukewarm? And if we are already
pipe
wading
in
in the
that
lukewarm water, how do we
hot
get out of
In
it?
my brain, I just moved past lukewarm. Like, okay, if you're succeeding and winning and doing all the things right.
Glad that's where your brain went.
If you've got a ton of humility.
Well, this isn't me, so I don't know why we're having this conversation. I'll see you guys later. Let me know where you land on this.
So one of the things I talked about in my message that I think kind of speaks to this is this idea of our power source. Where is our source of power coming from? And that idea that if you take a power strip and take that you're supposed to plug into the wall and plug it into itself, you're not going to get power out of it, obviously. Why? Because the power is coming from itself rather than being powered. In the same way, in the passage that I used in my message was, the abide in me passage. I am the vine, you are the branches. Abide in me. Jesus calling the disciples to abide in him, to get their power from him. And I think that's a huge part of it is if you're trying to do your faith on your own power, don't be surprised when you fall in this loop of not being powered. And we have my girls really like making tea. So we have a tea kettle that you can set the exact temperature to. And if there's a button on it that will hold the power at that, or hold the temperature at that temp, until you take it off and pour it out. And, oftentimes the girls will start that and not hit the hold temp button. And so they, it heats up and then stops, and then they forget that they were making tea because they get into something, and, they come back and the water's either lukewarm or maybe just barely above lukewarm. Yeah. And I think that just speaking from my own experience, that's how I am with my faith sometimes. Even speaking of that, how do I feel spiritually? And I invest this time, like we had our 21-day fast, at the beginning of the year, and I'm going to focus my time in that and, get spiritually hot. And then what do I do next? Do I continue that? Do I, continue down that line of I'm getting my source from God, or am I just going to kind of sit there and let myself cool down, so to speak?
Yeah, I don't know, and push back if you want. I don't know that there's a magic pill to answer this question. I believe from my own experience, taking the first step, one step at a time. I've heard that somewhere.
Good words.
Heard that a time or two.
But I think just taking that first step, I remember a season where Summer and I were married, and we had kind of drifted from our faith and from God. And I remember not being okay with that, like not being satisfied with it, recognizing that I desperately needed God, and I knew that I needed something different. Like I needed to really repent of where I was at that moment, but I didn't really want to. Like I knew I needed to. I just didn't want to, because quite honestly, I was having fun. Like life was like, I was enjoying things. And I remember literally just kneeling at the side of my bed one day, and I started praying, which was odd because during that season I didn't pray. And I remember just this heartfelt, authentic cry to God of, I know I need you. I don't want you right now, but I know I need you. So could you do something in my heart to just build this desire in me to want you again? And I, like, by no means did things just suddenly shift, but I believe looking back on it, like that prayer was step one in a lengthy process, but my journey back to God. And
That's cool.
yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think I agree that there's no magic formula per se, you know, like if this, then this, other than I think there's some details within this letter that maybe indicate a solution to this, mixed with like what you said and going back to this spiritual discipline of silence and solitude. I think they kind of combine. The reality is let him in. Like, I think that's solution number one to the lukewarm issue is let him in. And if it's kneeling by your bedside, having an honest conversation of, I don't know if I want you, but there's something in me that craves for you, and I want that, but I don't want it. I think that's a first step in letting him in. I am the vine, you are the branches, abide in me. That silence and solitude of just spending time with, because that was the missing piece for these people, is there was just no abiding. There was no with him. It was just, we've grown accustomed to how we do things and what we're going to do, that we've just totally neglected a connection to God.
Yeah.
And I think anybody in any job, this isn't just a ministry thing, but you know, you do student ministry long enough and you can get to the point where you feel like, I know what to do and how to do this.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in insurance long enough, I know what to do and how to do this. If you're a travel agent long enough and have been to enough travel school, I know what to do and how to do this.
Well, they teach you everything.
They teach you everything. It's an extensive program.
Very
You should check it
comprehensive.
It was.
Call 1-800-TRAVELS a lot.
I knew the
I don't think that
airport
works
code
out,
for
but-
every airport in the world.
Name Sweden.
I knew.
Didn't work then, did it?
I was
Sweden only has one airport.
I thought you were going to go domestic, you know, like Albuquerque. You know.
ABQ.
Yeah. See, there you go.
I mean, that
Orlando.
one makes sense.
Orlando.
MCO.
Very good. I knew that one.
I knew that one too. I was
one I
excited. I
know.
was like, "Ooh, pick me!"
Please get it wrong so I can say it right and be the best.
Ask me about Fort Wayne.
So I just think, and this has been such a big thing for me in my own personal growth, if I'm just being transparent, in this latest season of my life, is really rekindling that be with factor. And we talk about it in disciple making all the time. Like, well, you need to be with people in order to disciple them. But somewhere along the way, I've just forgot, like, oh, I should be with Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, I should just be with him. You know, in the Gospels, people sat at his feet. People just followed him around. Like, the disciples were just with him. And there was a lot of teaching and a lot of download of information, but a lot of it was just the being with, and they were transformed by that. And so I think if we're finding ourselves in a lukewarm place, or we want to prevent that from happening, that's probably got to be a pretty big component of it.
Yeah, I love when he's standing at the door and knocking. It says, let me come in and we will share a meal together. What?
Nothing. We're playing footsie under the table.
Oh,
sorry.
I was like, what did I say?
I'm so sorry.
No, you didn't say anything.
It wasn't you.
I mean, what you said was valuable. You did not say anything
didn't
that
say
was.
anything.
I was locked in, Cammie.
Thank you. I'm glad you're hosting today.
Yeah, me too. Can I get a thank you for that?
I did, didn't I?
I'm just based off last week's thank you counter. Doing a
Anywho.
great job, Cammie.
Thanks. He says, we will share a meal together as friends. And it just, I don't know, that picture of, like, I didn't invite Jesus over. He was at my door knocking already. Like, he's not waiting for an invitation from me.
Seems pretty presumptuous. Like, hey, let me in and give me, like, let's have a meal together. I'm here. Like, well, can I get a heads up, Jesus?
I don't know. I just love that picture of, I guess I'm just, my kids are older, and so I have time to share meals with people.
Yeah.
I love, my house is redone, so I want to have people over and sit at my table and just, the other night, last Monday night, had friends over, we ate, and I was like, okay, from 6 to 7, we're going to eat, and we're going to chit chat. And then from 7 after, we're only going to have deep conversation and talk about, spiritual things. And I was like, and I'm serious. And so that's what we did. And it was just so fun and amazing. And everybody left at 10.
I
And
bet that's awesome. I wonder what that's like.
Is there a sign-up sheet for this, or?
Cammie, I'm standing at the door knocking. Let me in. Let me in. Or I'll blow this house down. That's a different
all
story.
off in our club.
Different metaphor.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, that probably maxed the microphone out, didn't it? Anyway, I'm just, I don't know, the image that Jesus wants to sit at my table, and he wants me to sit at his table, and just, the same thing that you're saying, spend time with him.
It's not even I want to come in and like redecorate and I want to change everything and I want to do this project. And it's like, I just want to come in and share a meal with a friend.
Because all of that will happen just sitting at the table with him, like in his Jesus way. He'll be like, drop a little truth bomb.
You see it with Mary and Martha. I mean, it's the same thing, but like actually happening of, the one sister doing whatever. And he's just like, she's just sitting with me. Like she's chosen the better thing. Like it's not what you're doing is bad, but she's just chosen the better thing that's in front of her.
Yeah.
And that won't be taken away from her.
Yeah. So I think for me, I know I'm lukewarm when I am not desiring that deep intimacy with Jesus, or I'm not wanting more of him. I always want more of him. And when I'm not, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Just going through the motions.
And I just love that picture of what you described, Cam, because I feel like, put myself in Jesus' situation, and I'm going to come in, like he did to the temple with, a whip and flipping over tables, and like, what the heck is wrong with you people? But that's not how he comes in. He comes in, seemingly like with a broken heart, but also a loving heart. And, he's going to say hard things. It's not like he's coming, you guys are doing a great job. He's like, no, I'm not in it. I'm not there, and I want to be. And I love that. I love that response to Jesus. And I think, for me, that's a challenge, because that's probably is not my response in this situation.
Well, and then when he returns.
Yeah.
Like that. I feel like that's the tension that I'm struggling with. Like when he returns, I want people to be ready, not the depart from me, I didn't know you.
Yeah, and I think that, the Lord's willing that no one should perish, right? Like that's not the Father's heart is, he doesn't want anyone to experience eternal separation from him. That's not his heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I've also tried to apply this to like my own parenting and think through before it happens of like when my kids maybe confess sin to me, and not that like, they confess it to God, but if they ever were to sit down and just confess sin to me, like thinking through what is my initial reaction going to be? Is it going to be a loving father with a broken heart who loves his child, or is it going to be anger, and because that moment really matters, and to know that I'm treated that way, I struggle to see myself as being that. I'm confusing, but I struggle to see that would be the response to me from God at times, like because of my own brokenness and my own knowing of how I might react in a situation. So yeah, it's a really cool,
and
really cool passage.
I think just on that specific thought,
Are you gonna narc me out or something?
no.
Okay.
About what?
I've got lots of stories you can narc me out on.
I wouldn't ever.
About my parenting skills specifically.
No, I think going back to kind of my journey back to God, so to speak. And there were times when I was away from God. Most of that was out of guilt and shame, and feeling like I had let him down, disappointed him, knowing that my life wasn't what he desired it to be, or I desired it to be. And feeling so often that God was distant from me. Mm-hmm. And then you read the parable of the lost son, and you see that picture of like, while the son was a long way off, the father who had been like looking out for him goes running to him. And there is no angry father, losing it over what his son did. It was
a father at a party.
Yeah, a father who'd been just waiting and desiring for that reunion so that he could celebrate it. Yeah. And like when that hit me, that God had been watching and waiting for me to just turn back toward him, so that he could meet me where I was and celebrate, like, game changer.
Yeah. Well, we're at that like 45-minute mark. So anybody have any final thoughts or random bombs you want to lob out there that are appropriate?
I gave my last.
If not, that's okay.
I'm good.
You're good?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I've said my piece.
So I get the recommendation this week.
I would like to say one thing now that we've moved on.
I'll allow it.
I think you've done a wonderful job hosting.
Thank you. I'll do this.
I've heard 5 times better.
I've heard 5 better hosts.
Well, I mean, we're on episode 8, so you've at least heard 7 better. Oh, poor Nick. Poor Nick. You know what, Nick? I love you.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you too, buddy. You said that like I would never believe it. We've worked together for long enough.
I just want you to hear it again. You can't ever hear it too much, especially you.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I wasn't saying like especially you.
Tons of affirmation.
It's like,
I disagree. If you hear it too much, you just don't even believe it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I love you, I love you, I love you. Yeah, okay.
I feel like maybe Cammie's heard it too much from Nick.
well, let's see if Alex watches this, because that might be an Alex thing. We'll throw Alex on our bus. It's
He
like,
does say it a lot.
he'll tell like the FedEx guy, "Bye, I love you." I'm like, did he just tell the FedEx guy he loves him?
I remember the first time getting off the phone with Alex, and he was like, "Okay, bye, I love you." I was like, I just didn't know what to do.
Well, there's a part of you that's like, okay, maybe he just like, he's used to saying it to
Yeah.
his wife, but then when it like continued happening, you're like, oh no, he loves me.
Well, and then like I'm on the phone in front of my kids and with Alex, and it's like, okay, love you, love you too. And my kids are like, who was that? Oh, it was Alex.
It was Alejandro.
Alex, we love you.
We do love Alex.
We love you.
Yeah.
He's easy to love.
He is easy to love.
What's not to love?
What's not to love? What's love got to do? Sorry, that song just popped in my head.
So, Mike, you have the official
I have
sponsor.
the unofficial.
Hey, whoa.
Official, unofficial sponsor.
You're not
I'm
hosting.
setting him up.
You're not hosting.
Hey, he's just throwing me a softball.
You need
Yeah.
to calm down.
Trying
Give
to
him
move
an
things
underhand.
along.
It's
That's
teamwork.
what he's doing.
It's teamwork.
No, I muted myself.
All right, so unofficial sponsor. I like to camp. I like to hunt. I like to run, and a lot of those activities happen in the dark.
Sorry.
Okay,
It sounded like a good rap song.
a good rap song.
I like to hunt, like to
terrible
run,
rap song.
run. Like to
I'd
camp,
like to know what you think good rap music is. I want to listen to your playlist. I like to camp. I like to hunt. I like to run.
Someone right now is like turning that into a song. It's going to make millions of dollars.
I hope so. Just remember,
Jay, get on it.
Heard it here
Daniel
first.
thought of it, I guess. I don't know. Give credit where it's due. So I like to do those things, and they are activities that happen often in the dark. I upped my game in the light department. I'd always bought like the Energizer headlamps at Walmart, and they were affordable, and they are good for what they're for. I upped the game, and I got a light that's called a Phoenix, Fenix.
It's not spelled correctly.
Phoenix headlamp. Nick, I'm sure you work your wizardry.
Yep,
And you can put
it'll
a picture
be
of it
somewhere over here.
So I'll get you the specific model number because I don't know off the top of my head. Wow, it's
Difference.
oh my goodness!
What's good about it?
You laugh?
Yeah, you can see 2 blocks.
It's just so bright.
You're really selling this.
It's so bright. So me and my friend both have them, and so we were running down the street together. And he looked to see if traffic was coming, and I thought I was about to get hit by a car. I was like, ah! Sorry, I probably peeked that much. I legitimately thought I was getting run over by a car because it was so bright when he looked at me, and I was like looking that way. I had to fix something in my house today, and I don't have a lot of like ceiling lights in our house. We don't have a lot of those.
Yeah, we don't either.
And I was like, I'm going to get the headlamp. It was like I was working in daylight. I mean, it was... The lumens on it is unbelievable. If you just want to put the stats underneath it, that'd be
done.
great.
Lots of lumens.
Lots of lumens.
The
So
Jesus of all lights.
Is
It
it
is.
comfortable since you have to wear it running?
well, here's where it gets great.
Oh, but wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. The band is very comfortable, and it actually has a BOA system on it. So you click a button down, and then you twist a knob, and it actually will cinch onto your head to the, because when I'm camping,
That
I don't-
sounds horrible.
Yeah, was
I don't
gonna
need
say,
it.
Cammie, what do you think about that?
Kimmy's face is blue.
You lost me at cinch.
When I'm camping, I don't need it to be super tight. I'm not, but if
Yeah.
you're running, you need to cinch down a little bit.
Yep.
And then all you do is pull that little knob out, and it'll loosen up, take it off. It's a great system.
It sounds awesome.
It has a floodlight on one side, a spotlight on the other. There's 3 settings.
What is the
Is
difference
it
between
$9.99?
Well, a few payments of $9.99. What were you going to
What's the difference between the floodlight and the spotlight?
One is like a flood. One is a direct spot.
As I was saying that question, I got so upset at myself.
Even I knew.
Yeah, they even learned that in travel college.
They teach them everything.
Wasn't college.
Cammie's going to stab us after this.
She's like, why do I end up being the butt of every joke?
It is the only reason why they have me on here each week.
That is
Yep,
not
that's
true.
it.
It is.
That's it. If she wants to believe it, let her believe it. Whatever.
I talk with my hands. I know you guys make fun of me about that.
We all have our things that we could make fun of. Let's do
I
that.
think we all
actually.
gesticulate.
Yeah.
What should we
So-
make fun of Daniel about? What does
I
he
think
do when
we've
he
done
talks?
that already.
What does he do when he talks?
One, I don't know how to use
Takes
technology.
long pauses.
That's what I was going to say.
I do. I take pregnant pauses a lot of times at the wrong time.
Yeah.
I try and be careful with my words and what I say, and then sometimes I just sit in silence and look like an idiot.
I don't think it's the pause as much as just the speed and cadence.
Could be.
I'm from Texas, y'all.
Could be.
This is really fun. So get a light. They're really great. You're going to pay a little bit more than you would at Walmart for an Energizer, but the battery life is great. It's a great light.
How long have you had it?
3-4 months.
Okay.
I'm impressed with
I was
your-
hoping you were going to say like a week. I was like, how do you know the battery?
I knew it after a week. When I say the battery life is great, I mean per use. Like that you charge it.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, it's
It's
Okay.
rechargeable. But you can also buy separate batteries that actually have charging ports on the batteries.
oh,
Then
cool.
you can just charge the
so
batteries
So
up.
can you just swap out?
You can just slide
I
the
love
battery in
that.
and out.
Man,
It's a great light.
We don't
use of
really care.
adjectives
We're
is
I
just-
love
then-
camping supplies. You watch your mouth.
What?
Your use of adjectives is impressive.
Yeah.
I heard
Thank you.
great like 10 times.
You ever have a moment where you're like, I'm literally at a loss for words? That's where I'm at.
That's how much you love this light.
That's how much I love this light.
Gotcha.
It is. I mean, tracking deer through the woods. Like
That would be helpful.
you've,
If I ever shot a deer.
I mean, but you've
Seems like it's
tracked
been a
deer
while. Yeah.
in the dark.
Yeah.
It's
No, lumens matter.
It's tough if you don't have a right light or your light's dying. You know, I've tracked Jay's deer for 87 hours through the dark, and your light just starts to die.
We
And
probably all have a Jay
deer tracking story.
story.
So yeah, it's a sorry to kick
Sorry.
you. It's a really quality light. We will not regret it. And
Awesome.
they unofficially sponsor this podcast.
Thank you.
All right. Oh yeah, I'm
Phoenix.
hosting, so I got to wrap this up.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been great. Some would say. I would say
It's been
that.
great fun.
It's been great fun.
Some say it's been great
And,
fun.
Thanks for hanging out for 50 minutes, and hope you have a great rest of your week and going into the weekend. And we'll see you next time.